I did say moving right along, so moving right along to part 2 of the review of the pilot episode Fringe. And as always, a plug for my kindred spirit who reviews Star Trek, which is, of course, a completely different type of science fiction, but no more or less valuable than Fringe. Before I go any further, I would like to point out, as you probably are witnessing, that there is a very unique opening to the pilot. The opening sequence is one you will only see once and never again throughout the rest of the show, unless they happen to revive it in the future, which I highly doubt. It seems crude, almost like an old film being played, and that is intriguing. Not so much the words about ESP or pyrokinetics or anything like that, but the manner in which they're presented and the subtle but slightly diabolical background music. It's the only way it can be explained. And for you Fringe fans, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Moving on. Being that this is quite a long review, and being the fact that we are reviewing the pilot, there's a few things I forgot to mention. The bit players. You have Agent Broyles, the senior whatever that brought Olivia into the Fringe division. Although she's not quite in yet. She will be within another episode or two, but she doesn't know it right now. You also have Astrid Farnsworth, who also happens to be an FBI agent, and for all purpose and sake of reason, seems to be Walter's bitch. He can never remember her name, and orders her to do the most ridiculous things, from fetching him yogurt to bringing in a piano so that Peter can play music so that he can think. Kind of hard to think when you're injecting yourself with LSD, ketamine, benzodiazepine, and, oh, yes, he grows his own marijuana, but we don't find that out for another couple seasons. Another bit player is Charlie Francis, I believe is his last name. This is Olivia Dunham's old FBI partner before she was hauled into Fringe. Well, one of her partners. Her real partner is John Smith, the man that we are trying to save via Walter Bishop's madness, which is Olivia's driving force behind the entire episode. As Agent Broyles points out quite plainly, she's not doing this for altruistic reasons. She's not an upstart go-getter type of kid. No, she's in love, and she wants to save her, we will soon find out, lying boyfriend. I don't know really what can be said about this. We've got an FBI agent who flies to Baghdad, grabs a kid to get his father out of a nut house, drags a cow down a hall through MIT, sets up a mad scientist's basement in the dungeon, and here we have Fringe Division. Okay, let's be serious just for a second. The plot device is good up to this point. We're establishing character relationships, and the characters, for the most part, are not one-dimensional. There are exceptions. I feel bad for whoever has to play Astrid Farnsworth, because she really is Walter's bitch. And she just kind of smiles and totes around and sits in the background and doesn't do much. And I'm sure it's not a result of bad acting, but if I had to pick one-dimensional character, it would be Astrid. Not that she's annoying, not that she doesn't have anything to contribute, but she's only there when, as my kindred spirit would say, the script demands it. In any case, we move along and we find out that indeed this was some sort of test. We will later learn this to be known as the pattern. The pattern is based off of random scientific bullshit just happening in some sort of pattern. And that is basically the lead-in for the remainder of the first season. Establishing what the pattern is, establishing who the bald guy is, who, by the way, does appear in every single episode, and even establishing the cryptic code that renames the episode, which appears as bumpers before and after each commercial. It's actually quite interesting. If you want to invest the time, there are sites out there, and you can look it up and decipher the codes. You know, when you flash to a commercial and there's a dandelion or some type of flower, but there's a dragonfly wing on one of the flower petals, or maybe a woman's face, but it's smoke at the same time. And there's dots positioned around these various things to, you know what? I don't really care. Let's move on to more important aspects. We have William Bell, the founder of Massive Dynamics. And yes, you heard an S at the end, which is an interesting little oopsie because the pilot is the only time it's referred to as Massive Dynamics. In the future, it will be Massive Dynamic with a C at the end, not an S. The purpose of this company is basically, well, they show a billboard early in, and it says, what do we do? What don't we do? Well, that's effective marketing if I've ever heard of it. That'd be like me taking a Honda that was beat all to hell and kicked in all the windows and had no engine in it and said, well, you know what? What does this car do? What doesn't it do? Okay, it was a bad metaphor, but I think you get part of the point here. This super duper big conglomerate, super giant evil corporation is run by William Bell. And Olivia wants to interview him, but there's a problem. He's out of the country for 2 weeks. Or, well, I won't spoil it. Let's just say he's not out of the country, but he is out of it. So we're left to deal with this nice lady by the name of Nina Sharp. She seems to believe that Olivia has clearance and knows about the pattern. Obviously, Agent Broyles has been keeping things from her, and she gets pissed. But with a little cooperation, a quid pro quo, and later on, even being offered a job by Nina, Olivia develops a quid pro quo relationship with Nina Sharp. In other words, leave our names out of the newspaper, and we'll give you whatever information we have. Maybe. Well, what you think we have. But that's speculation for a later time. So we plunge through, and we plunge onward through the madness that is the pilot of Fringe. We come to find out that Peter is in debt to a guy named Big Eddie. No, seriously. He had his name legally changed. I mean, why else would someone call someone Big Eddie unless that was their name, right? It couldn't possibly be an alias or a nickname or anything. And we see Walter so preconceived with the notion of being outside of a mental institution that he's more concerned with little things like, ginger ale and listening to Bach and later on even milking a cow to get his mind off of things and help the storyline progress. Now, this does two things. It provides the humorous tone, but it also shows the darker aspect of Walter Bishop. The fact that, yes, he was involved in very dangerous experiments, and half of which he can't even remember. Yes, he's got crazy equipment hidden everywhere, all over the place. And yes, he is a nut job. We will continue this in part 3, and I will try to make some sense out of the rest of this episode. But for right now, all you really need to know is Olivia's boyfriend's dying. She's getting hauled into Fringe. She's working with a nut job and I guess you'd call him a con man / charismatic crook with an IQ of 190. So that's that for right now. And yeah, I'm sorry the video isn't exactly matching what I'm saying, but it'll all make sense and hopefully come to some fruition at the end of the third and final clip. And with that, I will present to you one of the most scary things I've ever heard Walter say. And I will leave the audio on so you can hear it as well because it's scary, but once again, subtly amusing. I have to make one correction before I show you the final scary Walter scene. I said John Smith. I do believe his name is John Scott. The reason why I don't really remember it is because, well, quite frankly, he's dying and you know what's going to happen. And given the fact that he can only be communicated with in his skinless vegetable state via a dream tank, well, we'll get to that later. The point is there was a correction. I said John Smith. It was John Scott. Now enjoy your clip.
You start to feel very relaxed very soon. And this will rip open your consciousness.